What happens when the girl who's treated like a slave at home dares to dream of something more? This is Emma, a teenage girl in Lagos, forced to hawk bread after school and endure her stepmother's cruelty. But fate has other plans. From street corners to unexpected kindness, her story becomes one of love, healing, and a future brighter than she ever imagined. Don't blink. You're about to witness a transformation you won't forget. Emma was just 16, living in Lagos with a stepmother who treated her more like a servant than a child. Since her father's death, she had become the one who fetched water, cooked meals, and hawked bread to support the home. But beneath her quiet spirit was a girl full of hope. A girl who hadn't yet discovered that love, peace, and purpose were waiting for her beyond the pain. This is her journey. Emma sat quietly in the corner of the small kitchen, her school uniform soaked with sweat from hawking bread under the scorching sun. Her stepmother's sharp voice echoed through the house, blaming her for everything from missing change to burnt stew. Ada had grown used to the insults, but today it stung differently. She stared at her worn-out shoes and wondered if her life would ever change. She was only 16, but her eyes already held the heaviness of someone much older. In the silence of that kitchen, a prayer formed quietly on her lips. The next morning, Emma tied her tray with a cloth and balanced it carefully on her head. She walked through the dusty streets of Lagos, calling out to passers-by in a soft, tired voice. People barely noticed her. At school, her classmates whispered about her secondhand books and the smell of fresh bread on her clothes. She kept her head down, refusing to cry. Deep down, Emma longed for someone to truly see her. Not just the bread girl, but the person buried beneath the weight of everyday struggle. One rainy evening, Emma stopped at a junction to shelter from the downpour. That's when she saw him, a blind man sitting under a broken umbrella, quietly humming to himself. Something about his calmness drew her in. She offered him a piece of bread, expecting nothing. He smiled and said, "You sound like someone who's seen more than she should at her age." That moment stuck with Emma. For the first time, someone spoke to her like she mattered. She walked home drenched, but her heart felt strangely light. Over the following weeks, Emma made it a habit to stop by and see the blind man. His name was Papa Josh. He spoke with wisdom that didn't come from sight, but from seeing life in deeper ways. He didn't ask her questions she couldn't answer, and he didn't judge. Instead, he listened. Ada began to share her thoughts, her fears, and her dreams she had never dared speak aloud. In Papa Josh, she found a father figure she had lost. His words became a quiet balm to the wounds life had given her. Papa Josh encouraged Emma to notice the beauty in her daily walks. The laughter of children, the rhythm of passing cars, the scent of fried plantain in the air. He helped her see that her life didn't have to remain this way. One day, he told her, "You have more light in you than you realize. Your story isn't over." Emma had never heard anyone speak about her like that before. That night, she cried quietly under her blanket, not from sadness, but from something new, hope. Meanwhile, her stepmother grew harsher. She accused Emma of being lazy, of sneaking off, of wasting time. She took Emma's earnings and mocked her silent strength. But something in Emma had shifted. The more time she spent with Papa Josh, the less power her stepmother's words held. Emma began to stand taller, respond calmly, and leave the house with a quiet determination that confused the woman who once controlled her every move. A new version of Emma was slowly emerging, stronger and unshaken. On her 17th birthday, Emma didn't expect anything. She was hawking as usual when Papa Josh surprised her with a small beaded bracelet. "It's not much," he said, "but it's yours. A gift because you're a gift." She held it tightly, the simple gesture meaning more to her than anything she'd ever received. That evening, she sat outside her house and looked at the sky. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like running. She felt grounded, grateful, and quietly alive. News of Emma's kindness began to spread in the neighborhood. People noticed how she helped the elderly cross the road and gave bread to hungry children. A local church group invited her to speak at a youth gathering. Though nervous, Emma agreed. She shared her story, not the pain, but the lessons. People were moved by her humility and strength. That day marked a turning point. Emma realized she could inspire others, even if she hadn't fully healed herself. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was beginning to live. One afternoon, while returning from a market, Emma met a young man named Paul. He was helping his aunt with her stall and noticed Emma struggling with her tray. "Let me help you," he offered. She hesitated but allowed him. His kind eyes and gentle manner reminded her of Papa Josh's warmth. They talked briefly before parting ways. The next day, he was waiting at the same spot. "Just wanted to see that you got home safe," he said. Emma smiled shyly, unaware that this was the beginning of something special. Paul and Emma began seeing each other more often. They walked home together, shared stories, and laughed in ways Emma hadn't in years. He never pressured her, never asked for more than she could give. He simply stayed consistent and kind. Emma found herself looking forward to their conversations, to the comfort of his presence. Her world was beginning to expand. Where once there was only struggle and silence, there was now friendship and gentle joy. And though she didn't say it aloud, her heart was beginning to heal. Emma's stepmother noticed the change and grew suspicious. She warned Emma about boys who only want one thing. But Ada knew Paul was different. He respected her, treated her like she mattered. Papa Josh, too, approved of the young man. "He walks with respect," he said, "and that is rare." Encouraged Emma allowed herself to dream of a future that included love, a love that didn't hurt or demand, but gave freely. It was terrifying and beautiful, and for once she allowed herself to believe she deserved it. Weeks turned into months. Emma and Paul's bond deepened. He introduced her to his mother, a kind woman who welcomed Emma with open arms. They often sat together in her modest living room, laughing over Puff Puff and Zobo. Emma felt something she hadn't in a long time, a sense of belonging. She wasn't a burden here. She wasn't the bread hawker or the unwanted girl. She was just Emma, loved, seen, and accepted. And in that simple acceptance, she began to bloom. One evening, Paul walked Emma home and stopped at her gate. "I don't know where life will take us," he said softly, "but I know I want you in mine." Emma's heart fluttered. No one had ever spoken to her with such gentle certainty. She looked into his eyes and whispered, "I'm scared." He smiled. "Me too, but we'll face it together." That night, under the stars, Emma felt something stronger than fear, faith. Faith that she could finally be happy. Emma's stepmother was furious when she found out. She tried to forbid Emma from seeing Paul. But Emma, now 17 and standing in her strength, refused. "You don't control my heart," she said calmly. That simple sentence marked a powerful shift. Her stepmother slapped her, but Emma didn't cry. She walked away with her head high, leaving behind years of silence. It wasn't rebellion, it was release. Emma had chosen herself. Soon after, Papa Josh passed away peacefully in his sleep. Emma was heartbroken, but she knew he would have wanted her to live fully. She kept his bracelet close and remembered his words, "Your story isn't over." His absence left a quiet space in her life, but also a legacy of love and wisdom. At his funeral, Emma spoke bravely about the man who had helped her believe again. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. With Papa Josh gone and her relationship with her stepmother broken, Emma moved in with Paul's family. They welcomed her like a daughter. She continued school, helped Paul's mother at the shop, and found joy in simple things. Morning walks, shared meals, laughter around the dinner table. She was no longer defined by her pain. She had built something new. She had built a life. One day, Paul surprised her with a ring. "Not today," he said, "but someday. I want you to know I choose you," again and again. Tears filled Emma's eyes, not because of the ring, but because of everything it meant. For once, her story wasn't one of suffering, but of love that stayed. Love that healed. Love that made her feel whole. Emma and Paul started a small baking business together. She laughed one day, realizing that the bread she once hawked in humiliation had become a source of joy and income. The same bread that once weighed heavy on her head now lifted her life. Their bond deepened, not just in romance, but in purpose. They supported local girls, shared food with hungry families, and never forgot where they came from. Paul held her hand as they looked at the small home they had built together, filled with laughter, warmth, and dreams realized. The hardships of the past seemed distant now, replaced by quiet moments of joy and peace. Emma no longer chased love, money, or happiness separately. She had found them all woven together in a life grounded by kindness and fulfillment. She smiled, knowing that her journey, from a girl burdened by cruelty to a woman embraced by love, was proof that hope, patience, and faith could transform even the darkest stories into beautiful beginnings. Emma live happily ever after. Subscribe to our channel for more stories like this.